Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. Only a little bit late. Hey there, Okaneki. Welcome right at the start. Let's do a quick kitty cat check here. We have four visible. Sammy is not visible, but everybody else is. See if I can spot her somewhere. No. But yeah, let's see here. I put some fresh catnip oil down on the little bed where Mason is, so they're interested again. Well, and as soon as I mention it, Mason's like, well, now I don't like it. What do I think of, do you mean Dungeons and Dragons, PSS? What do I think of that? It can be very enjoyable. It's highly dependent on the group that you're playing with. Would I like it with a random internet group? Absolutely not. All right. For those that weren't here, and as a reminder for those that were, this is where we left off last night. There are currently about, let's say, 1,600 blobs and an active 200 mouse projectiles. We are generating them at, let me just, 1 second here. This one open and ready. Okay. Let's see here. We have an active 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 mouse spawners spawning 10 times a second. We can do more if we wanted to. There is kind of a limit. If I were to go in and make them spawn 10 times faster than they are, we will eventually hit a limit here. So here's 8 spawners at 100 times a second. We kind of hit our limit. There are on the screen within the visual zone, within the survival zone, which is about 2 screens wide. We have just under 6,000. Now, 3,500 moving objects is about the limit for FPS plummeting. So we're getting about 1 frame a second and a little under 6,000 mice. Mice don't collide with each other. They don't navigate around to anything. They only bump into blobs. So this isn't a collision factor. This is an existence and movement factor here. But it does look kind of cool. You get this sort of vortex in the middle. But part of what that demonstrates, part of what this demonstrates is the ability to pin spawners to the player. So what we're doing is we load up a template, we specify a zone to add it to and what template to use. We pin it there, and then we set the interval. Setting the interval is what makes it actually start spawning. So anytime we want to deal with these, we could have logic that tracks them and add removes them from the parent object so we can rebuild them. And we're going to need to do that because today we want to make further adjustments to the spawner template. We want to make the player object a more generalized object. And then if we get to it, we want to start messing with the movement logic, that is, which movement logic is applied to an entity. We want to make that so there is that it's cleaner. Right now we're loading a template and we're passing that in to the spawner in order to create them. So if we look at a spawner, and hello everybody that has joined. Still the same game, Eldenvin. Still the same game. If we look at a spawner, each physics tick it checks to see if it should spawn something new. If it does, it creates it using that template. One thought that I've had is that instead of creating it just using an entity template, that we also have a movement logic template that we're passing in. That could help, because then we can mess with that movement logic template. Real quickly, though, for clarity of testing purposes, I want to have, we don't need a mob template. We need an entity template, and we're going to say color modulate, which is a color, a variable. Then in the entity pool, in the we are just okay, we're configuring it during the spawn. Okay. Which is in entity. When we initialize it using an entity template. Set the texture. Do we have color modulate in here already? Yes, we do. Okay. So when we initialize it, we already have a texture loaded. Anything else? Okay, we'll put it here. Color modulation is just a color shift. So then in an entity template, let's check that. We should have is equal to color. We're going to use RGBA, so I think it should be 1, 1, 1, 1 by default. Then in the two entity templates that we're using, we're not going to touch it, but we're going to change it during the spawn process or during the setup. This is a testing process here. So we're not going to touch the blob. We're going to mess with the mice. So first mouse one will be unchanged. We are loading the template object a second time each time. Template is an entity template. We are going to make this one a little... Wait. I just want to... Just want to check this and see if it explodes. Okay. So we're going to make this one a little red. Didn't like that. Entity template, that's why. Okay, they all changed. They all changed. That is not what we want to have happen. So we need to have a way to edit the entity to spawn without changing the core template. So this one's a little cyan colored. If we go up into here, we're going to make this one a little red colored, as I said we were going to the first time. So we can see there are no red ones spawning. That's because this template, this whole template for them, has been overridden. Now we could make new templates for them. But I would like the ability to mess with that. I should be able to duplicate this, right? Duplicate. Entity 3 is the same as test entity 2, but its color modulation will be... we're just going to make it super red here. And we're going to load a 3. Now we can do this. You can see two different mouse projectiles being emitted here. But this is requiring us to have a whole separate template in order to do this. And I don't want to have a whole separate template for any sort of modifications we do. We want to be able to apply those modifications on top of it. Now, I wonder if we could duplicate a template. So an equals operator won't do it. Color modulate is equal to color. Now this one by default has no color change to it. So we're changing the first one. I mean, I will try to make it distributed in some fashion, Eldon. Steam is a good distribution platform. And the second one is red, so I want to mess with it the same way. Oh, wait, this will change the blobs. It's not what we're looking to do. We don't need to change the blobs. We have two different of these. And then this is the one that is normally red. So we're going to make it, I think it'll make it a little bit violet if we do this. And we need to pass in template 2. There we go. Okay, if we duplicate the template, then we get the we can modify it, which would let us say, like, okay, this weapon uses this template. We would have a series of modifiers that we're going to apply to it. Eventually, the movement would be overridden entirely. Okay. Okay, we can modify templates. This is good. So we have that going. And we can delete you. Actually, let's double check that. This is the same template duplicated twice. Okay. We load the same thing. Ooh. Okay. Now we're actually going to duplicate it twice without reloading it. All right. What this will let us do is create a catalog of entity templates. We could say, give me the blob template, and we could refer to it as a constant. And that would spit back this actual resource file. I could actually load that resource in there as a as like an export. Yes. One of the cats just pushed through the curtain. You can see a flash of light over Sherbet there. Okay, so we've got template modification confirmed. And all we would do is anytime something asks for a template of a given type, it will duplicate its existing one. Sammy has come charging in. We were going to do a thing. We were going to do a thing. I've already forgotten what we were going to do. Well, I remember one thing we were going to do, so let's do that. We were going to make the player object use the existing pattern after we find another cat. Well, Sammy clearly saw something. They are dodging the camera with great regularity. You can see the camera is kind of kicked out a little bit from where Sky is. There's a decent possibility that Mason is behind that curtain at the moment. He'll sit right up against the window. Okay. So currently the player object uses an entirely different pattern. It uses the old pattern. And we don't want to use the old pattern. Instead, we'll use the new one. And we'll have the player extend the entity. script. It inherits entity. And it is player. Player is universally going to be a special one. We're going to need to make sure that we track it properly. What is all this going on? Okay. No fresh explosions. That's good. So the difference with the player is we don't want to treat it universally the same way. We want to encapsulate a lot of stuff related to it. Still having a one-off way to spawn a player is good, though. But how to do? So we have a player factory object that generates the mob body variant of them. And it is a global object. So we could pre-instantiate the player. It would be useful if we could access these for export purposes. Test as integer 0. Yeah, we can't set these because they're a particular instance. What if we look at core? Nope. Core has our different scenes, but it doesn't have the globals. What I would like to do is avoid having to insert those values into it. So right now, all of these entities exist at the top level, and I need to pre-populate them. So anything that goes into them has to be given to them. If I have, say, like a template or similar, I have to have something that loads those up. So I could have like a catalogs node living somewhere, and then I could directly access it. So like with catalogs here, it's not like I can export something. Same way in Player Factory, even though there's this export that's available, I can't mess with it here. And I could have metadata attached to it. It's X, and it's a what? It's a resource, so I add that. And then if I pass this testing resource into it, then get meta. Okay. I could use metadata for the globals and set those and then get that in the setup of them. So I could have a series of member variables that are things like this is this template or similar, and I could set them in metadata, but that's still kind of ugly. Because I still have to fetch them, and it's going to be in this big unordered list. I would prefer that I have the variables preset. Is there a way to do that? Ooh. Maybe we can. Okay. So you can auto load. This is true, Jorn. We have currently 8 POV cams. Yeah. Let me show you. We have 8 points of view for the cats. Some of them take a little bit to behave themselves. There are 5 cats to track, but we have 8 cameras to track them with. Currently, we can only see 1 cat. I do plan on getting a setup in place to let me change those camera positions more easily. Right now, there are a lot of like camera posts and tripods all over the place. They are not easily moved. Okay. We could have a scene that represents these global objects, and those scenes could have member variables. So I do not stand the whole stream. I set most of it, and that's why I take periodic breaks when I remember to, so I can get up and move around. I have enough spinal problems. I could stand. I do have a standing desk for that, but there's a lot of infrastructure and cabling that moves around when I do that, and I'm not sure how stable it would be at this point. I should swap out my chair now and again. I do have a kneeling chair for that as well, but again, logistics. Okay. We don't need test resource anymore. We are close to not needing any of these. I'm going to keep them around just in case. We're going to create a new scene, which is a test scene. It is only going to inherit node. And it is going to have a script attached to it, which is the test scene script. And it's going to export x as int. So it has an x. We're going to make it 10. Then we're going to go into our project settings. We're going to go into an auto load. We are going to add a test scene as an auto load. Welcome back. Okay. Within this test scene, I'm going to have something visible just in case. Top left. Don't see any sign of a visible element. We're going to look at our remote list. We have a test scene loaded. It does have a label, but I'm not seeing any sort of cost here. Excellent. Excellent. All right, what this means is that we can make some of our global, our auto loads scenes, and those scenes can have exported variables, and exported variables mean that I can set things. I can set things in the editor to make them effectively constants during runtime, where I don't have to reference things like direct file paths. We can see some of that in my template objects. So right here, I have a texture. This texture will be available even if I move the source file around. I am partial to those covers, Vin, if you can't tell from the nanotubes on the model. A little more pink, but you know. See? Tubes. Okay. We don't need that. Okay. Movement pool, canvas pool, all of these are okay. Right, I can change the file order, I can mess with stuff and make it so that it makes more sense to me later without having to worry about things exploding down the line. So, like, I want to avoid this kind of thing. That's why I have a lot of these exports. So I can go into the scene and say, hey, the enemy zone is this one. The bullet zone is this one. And then now I have an explicit reference to it. You are indeed, King. You are indeed. Okay. Okay. Thinking. So we have a player factory. We could make a player pool object, but is that really going to be necessary? Hey there, Annabelle. The pool things are only to keep an entity around. They don't do a lot of maintenance on them. We could make the player a global, period. But that would limit our ability to have multiple players down the road. I could have a player's object where the entire intent is to reference it for a source of the player objects and to get data about the player objects. And then I can release players from there. I can create players from there. It will act in a lot of ways like a pool with extra functionality. But it doesn't store them. So I don't want to use pool as the name, because the whole point of pool is to store the objects for rotation in creation and deletion. I never go in and say, hey, shape pool, give me the third shape. But with a player, I might say, give me the third player. Yeah. So I think we're going to keep calling it factory. And we are going to add a global scene here. We're going to call it the player factory. And it's going to extend node still. So now we have player factory. And we're going to attach the existing player factory global here. Well, welcome to the world of the living, Tess. I have discovered today that instead of an object here having to be the script, I can load it as a scene. And if I load it as a scene, I can set exports on the global. Well, thanks for swinging through, folks that are heading out. So if I remove player factory here, I'm going to add it back. We're going to go up to our globals. We're going to go into here. We have a player factory scene. We're going to add it back in. It's going to be called player factory. Player factory is now a scene. Not thinking of a player limit currently, Dodd. This is a bit of future-proofing. The idea of maybe making it couch co-op in the future would be a possibility, and if I make it so there can be multiple player objects from the get-go, then that would allow it. And Okaneki, that is Ember. She is the smallest cat and the second oldest. She has very cute paws. She has those white socks. Okay. So Player Factory now has that. We can have export player template is an entity template, just so. There you go. So now we have a player template, which will mean that anytime, once this loads up, I will have access to that template at runtime. I don't need to worry about presetting it. This will actually help with a lot of stuff here. Right now, in the game object, we're doing things like this still makes sense, saying where's the spawn path, where's the player, that kind of thing. But I want to remove any place where I have to go in and say, hey, this is how you populate this catalog. I could go in and have a catalog global and reference it that way, which will be useful once we start getting more and more objects into play, is I can have things like dictionaries and whatnot loaded up and referenced by IDs, that kind of thing. Okay. Hey there, dude. Player, remove player. We'll need this still. Stretch the knees a little bit here. Ouch. Okay. Right, Tess. I don't have to worry about, like, how I was doing it is I went into the game scene and said that the game object has exports to tell, like right here, player template. The game itself doesn't need the player template. It was handing that off to the player factory. This is potentially a problem. We don't want to have that, because if the game object doesn't do it every time, then that global breaks down. Like any game object or similar object that wanted to reference the player factory needs to make sure that that those templates have been loaded initially, that those things have been prepped. And we don't want that. Okay, so player extends entity. And now we need creation logic for a player object. Okay. So in player, we're extending entity. And we would have initialize normally. We're still going to have the player factory deal with most of this. One of the differences is going to be that the movement list is going to be supplied. Well, is going to be different, but everything else is probably fine. That's fine. Movement doesn't need speed. We could still have a global speed multiplier. We know We know a lot of this, but I have not, dude. As far as AI code generation, there are things that AI could generate and could debug, but the problem is, just like everything that AI can do, is that it doesn't have contextual information at all. As in, the AI doesn't know what something is. It doesn't know that a loop is a loop or what a loop constitutes. It just knows that there is something that is shaped like that it has been told this is a loop on this concept. If the structures that it can create are more complicated than that, it has been defined. It has been manually defined by someone. So if that someone is wrong, if the labeling is wrong, or similar, it will go haywire. So very simple things, very basic concepts it can do. But everything else has to be specified, has to be given to it. Like directly, in great detail. Otherwise, it's entirely reliant on the tags in the quality of the kind of compositing logic. So I would not trust it for error correction at all. And hello, Smith. Hello, Winnie. Hello. Welcome. Hey, buddy. Sherbet is very slowly forgiving me for his vet visit. It's not about prompting, dude. It's about source data. This is the same problem that you run into with like AI art. So even if I have excellent prompting of like do this for like pages and pages, if my source data is in any way flawed, if the data that was used for training of the AI is flawed, those flaws will come through, and potentially those flaws will be propagated in nasty ways. The added wrinkle is if I wasn't able to code that myself, how do I know that it coded it right? And if it coded it wrong the first time, why would I trust it to fix its error? These are the issues, you know? If a generative art AI messes up the fingers, why would I trust it to fix the fingers? Like, it might. But if I can't generate that art to fix the fingers, then I have to rely on it to do it, or I have to rely on somebody else to do it for me. And that goes into greater and greater detail. Oh yeah, copyright law is a huge landmine for AI right now. Any art generated through artificial intelligence cannot be copyrighted, at least in the United States. I don't know what case law is like in other places. But in the United States, it's been established a couple of times that anything generated by AI is not subject to copyright. As far as code, you don't have to worry as much about copyright, but it comes down to Um, I think intellectual property, as far as code goes, is heading into a funny space. Because with generative AI out there potentially scraping code bases, it runs the risk, just like any of the generative AIs, that it's just wholesale copying stuff. As in, there are generative AI programs out there that if you tell them, hey, I want you to make a game that's like this, they just spit a GitHub repo back at you. So while you can't like patent a particular implementation of code, you can get into copyright territory if it can be shown that you wholesale duplicated an entire code base or substantial code base from someone else. Now, what we're getting into, dude, is not that generative tools are not capable of doing stuff. It's more the current impression of them is overblown. Just calling them AIs is actually really inaccurate. Really, really inaccurate. They are generally glorified expert systems. Added to that, that most of the ways that those algorithms are created and trained, the makers of those algorithms don't know how they work. So when they're told, like, hey, your AI is doing bad stuff, the solution is generally to go in and have somebody, like, graft a hard-coded rule over top of a particular set, but that rule still relies on them understanding see, that's... Oh, okay. If you're referring to coding, then yes, knowing how the overall structure works, yes. But as far as to fix the rule, you give it more data, that's wrong, dude. If you don't know what the data is going to result in, and if you don't know that everything about the data you give it is accurate, then more data can mean more wrong. If I give it 100 pictures and say these are pictures of cats, if any of them are wrong, the output might be wrong. And even if they're all cats, it doesn't know what a cat is in that picture. If all of the pictures contain grass, then the AI is going to say, this image that I produced that contains only grass is at least part cat. We can see this in image recognition AIs and similar. These are not programs that know what anything is. These are programs that replicate shapes. This is shaped like an X. Dude, you're not making an AI at all. This is part of the fundamental misunderstanding of the algorithms being used. You're generating a neural network. So none of these programs that are out there, ChatGPT, none of them are artificial intelligences. And hello, Forget-Me-Not. Welcome. You have joined us in the middle of a conversation. Okay, player extends entity. Does player need to even extend entity? It does all of the same general things. Player's zone needs to extend collision zone and handle some of that differently. Yeah, they match shapes. It's the existing tools out there, these language models match shapes. So if all it knows is what a recipe looks like, and it as far as like the data that it has generated and the algorithm that it is using is used to recreate the shape of something. And it has logic inside of it that says, okay, if I get this shape descriptor, then I'm going to look for shapes that match that. And I'm going to mush them together into something that still aligns with that shape. And I am anthropomorphizing the algorithm a little bit here, trying to reduce that, because terms like no are weighted. And then if it comes out and that shape still aligns with what the data implies that that shape should look like, then it considers that correct. And as far as the algorithm is concerned, that is entirely correct. But it might also be entirely wrong. I think earlier, I think it was Dodd, mentioned the using glue. Yes. So thickening a sauce with glue is, it may have been supplied data that had some flaw in that. It might have been supplying data that says glue is a thickening agent. And having been supplied data that says, hey, in this recipe, we add a thickening agent. It has data that says glue is a thickening agent, and it has data that says a thickening agent goes here. But it doesn't have data that tells it why, or it doesn't have algorithmically the ability to know why those two things don't go together in that context. In a similar fashion, the idea of a strike is different in the context of that's the thing, dude, though, is neural networks or similar are tools that exist at multiple scales. Scaling it up just means you can have more complicated data. And more data. Most of these chat programs are trained on ridiculously large data sets. But they're still vulnerable to that core principle. They're creating a series of if X then Y kind of behaviors. Usually just, here are X arbitrary inputs, adjust these inputs by an arbitrary set of numbers adjusted over time, and then keep doing that until an output results. And assuming that the data is right, then Like, the data is accurate for a data set that is entirely encompassed by the training data set. You'll get results that the end user considers acceptable. As soon as data sets from outside of the training set are introduced, you can get anomalies. We have had, again, supercomputer, ridiculous, like corporate level, massive level artificial intelligences, limited language models, whatever, expert systems, completely drop the ball on their data set, even if their data set contains billions of items, billions upon billions of items that are accurate within, that are consistent within their set. They can still fall apart in practice. Different levels within the game. In general practice. In general ideas. But ultimately, dude, your statement that it is a tool to be used within its limits is, yes, true. If you know what the constraints of the tool are, and you leverage it appropriately, then it can be a really good tool. There are image generation programs in similar. There are various tools that I think are doing it well. The difficulty comes with what we're seeing as far as hype right now. Amazing levels of hype about what these programs are capable of, what job roles they'll be able to fill in industries. And we're already seeing some of the failures of that. The hype bubble is starting to implode. That doesn't mean it's slowing down fast enough. We're still getting a lot of weird stuff put out there, but the hope is that tech companies that are trying to leverage it shift gears and try to figure out what it's actually good for, and making products that use it for what it's good for, as opposed to selling it as if it is this be-all, end-all. And that's setting aside like the copyright concerns that we were mentioning earlier. People have already been burned by that. As soon as anybody finds out that any of the content is AI generated, then your copyright protection goes away. I think, like we were mentioning, you still need to know how to do it in order to at least evaluate that the result is everything that you want and that it works cleanly. So if you tell it, hey, stamp out a template for this real quick, it could save you entering code. Like, it could save you typing it. There are some IDEs that have some of that in them, whether they're just autocompletes or they have like generated results from it. They tend not to be real-time generative tools. And that's probably about where it would stop, is as far as utility, is maybe going through and saying, hey, for our code base, generate some templates, and then we'll evaluate those templates to use in our IDEs. I could also see it being used for fuzz testing, where you're just throwing data at the wall. Public domain art expansion can be dangerous in this regard, referencing the copyright issue. Is nothing that it generates can be copyrighted, but it could be generating something that is almost wholesale somebody else's work. So it might spit out the cover of Elden Ring, but slightly more green. That would still get you burned in, say, like, US, let alone Japanese copyright court. That'd get you burned bad. And that's still the problem with the generative art stuff, let alone the horrifying eldritch monstrosity fingers and the like that still gets done. And hello, Drew. No, the copyright wasn't broken, dude. The copyright, nothing that it generates can be copyright, but it's still subjected to copyright comparisons. Is where we're currently sitting. We have movement in collision logic using a new highly efficient framework. I do recall a Maxwell. But no, the state of copyright as far as limited language models, nothing that it generates is copyright of the maker. So if I, as an individual, generate an image, I don't hold copyright to that. Nothing does. It's automatically public domain. But if it can be shown that that image could be genuinely mistaken for the work of a different artist, then you get into dangerous territory. There's also just like personal use, Dodd. Like, you're using it for something that isn't for like mass market consumption, or that you're going to tweak it. Oh, okay. I get what you're saying, dude. Yeah, that's weird. That's unexplored territory legally right now. There are actually legal battles going on about the very concept of using other people's works. Companies making AI are trying to make the argument that it's the same as a human being learning from existing works of art and iterating on that. And I think that gets into the same disingenuous territory of people calling them artificial intelligences. It's not learning from the work. It's taking that and saying, hey, this piece of art is shaped like this thing that you told me it's shaped like. I will use the shape of this piece of art in the future. Hey there, Ethan. But it is a nuanced and complicated area, and the tech bros are all over it as far as selling it as the latest amazing thing that you should give them huge amounts of venture capital for. Okay, I need a player template. The player template should have a movement logic specific to it, and it's only going to set a collision. Yeah, I don't think we need a player object that extends entity just now. this is going to be a special entity. It extends entity template, and we're going to call it player. Player uses the Nyanite PNG. It's 16 by 16, it's offset, it's still using a rectangle. Speed actually doesn't matter. All right, dude, thanks for swinging by. We had a good chat. We had a good conversation, I think. Okay, it has no navigation AI in here. It's still going to move using that logic. And the movement array in speed should still exist. We're going to populate that too. And we're going to make a new child node that is a collision zone. And we're going to call this the player zone for now. The player zone. Oh, no, can't do that. It needs to be this pattern. That. So when I added one, I did not add it as a nested scene. It needs to be a nested scene to work. The funny thing is, most of the AI assistants that we're seeing used are actually a step down from the prior ones, which were often generated using the same toolkits that the modern limited language models are based off of. And those are usually neural networks that generate, not even neural networks, they are expert systems. You create a decision tree. Now, you could slide some AI in there to do things like try to parse language. If I can break down what a person said and know, hey, it looks like they're asking for this. You get a Clippy that actually works. And once you know what they're you think you know what they're asking for, you subject it to a decision tree. And that spits out results. But for any of that to work, you still need human beings on the other end to step in when it breaks. Okay. We have player zone. We have a player entity. We lock that in. And a Clippy that works is actually a huge ask for a couple of reasons. One, as soon as people see Clippy, they're going to get enraged. Doesn't matter if it's the new and improved Clippy, it's still Clippy. It is the second coming, and it wasn't welcome during the first coming. Drew, we're doing well. We're slightly delayed as far as code, but we're well ahead of the game as far as some fun conversation. Oh, okay. We need movement models. We need a movement model that is the player. It extends movement. We're going to call it move player. Then if we go into our game, right now we're relying on constants for this. I feel like we're going to very steadily be moving some of these out of a global constant and into specific concepts. The silliest cat, as far as how he appears on camera, Sherbet can be the silliest because he'll be all pretzel knotted. Behaviorally, the silliest is often Sky. Both in an internet meme kind of silly where he'll wreck stuff, but also just out of how he interacts with me. Stuff like messing with the computer mouse, that kind of thing. Hey, you. Okay, but let's, for now, we're going to go into, we need to figure out where we put that constant. Movement pool. Should be in movement pool, right? It's not in movement pool. It is constants movement type. There we go. Hey there, chicken. Welcome. Move player is equal to 5. So then we go into our player template, and its movement is going to be move player. Should be in there now. Ah. Right, all right. Let's give it a kick. I mean, Clippy as a sentient entity would be an interesting narrative concept because that is abandoned technology or reviled technology. That is something that, if it had sentience and the ability to act, could have reason to resent. And Chicken, if you're unfamiliar with the channel, lately we've been doing nothing but game development. And we're working on a game right now. Player resource. Here. Add movement. Move player. There we go. Had to reload it. And it will move at 96. Then we go into game. Oops. It will move at 96. It will not move at 96 times. Okay. We have all of that in place. Now we need to go into the game code. We need to find the movement for the player object. If we even put it here. Did we put it in the actual player object? We did. Okay, convenient. We will mess with that right after a short break. And we're back. Hello to anyone that joined and is still here. We don't need to mess with the sprite animation, I think. Because that should be handled okay. So in move player, we need to get movement type, so we have that. Then we need move straight line. Not because we're going to use the same logic, but because we want to have this in here. Mau Mau, I'm not a fan of coffee. Not a fan of coffee. That's in the player object, actually. Player body. There we go. Okay, and then in move player, then we are going to do this is going to hard override. So it zeroes it. We're going to set... we can just use that as a container variable. And we don't do that. Hot chocolate I do like. I actually like chai a lot. Chai latte. Very good. Okay. If we set this, that should create the movement that we want. We now have a player entity. We need the idea of a spawner that would only spawn once, or that we could invoke outright. This is a hack. That static function. target zone, an entity template. To create the entity. We are going to overwrite some of these. We'll keep their name. Use. That. And then that. And then that. Yeah, we switched up to piano, Casemate. We switched up to piano. I'm liking it. Those, one of those, one of these. Okay. By doing this, we have a global function we can use. We can do spawner spawn, and that will create this. So if we do spawn, we need target zone, entity template, new entity position. Oop. How you been, Casemate? How you been? Okay, I didn't explode anything. This is good. This is good. So in theory, so we're going to keep the base player object in here, though. What we're going to do is spawner.spawn, and we're going to have the player zone. We're going to have load. Player resource, and then we're going to have vector 2, and we're going to have 96 by 96. Oops. Move pool. Okay, not yet, but it's getting there. Good kind of busy or bad sort of busy? Oh. It shouldn't matter. Oh, no, it will matter. It will matter. Speed. Okay, now we need to get the different animations in there. We also need to say that its collision zone is player. So we have our second little entity down there. Which should technically collide in the same... Yep, collides in the same way. All right. Now we need... We need to get the animations in differently. Not initialize, not clear image, draw. Okay. Left, right. I'm going to say... Moving is a Boolean is equal to false. Moving... Actually, here. Moving is equal to target movement, because that should equal a non-zero, right? That doesn't seem right. I'm gonna say mecha, because there's a lot of syllables jammed in there, and that's the only one I can see, but hello. Let's see. X is not what we want there. We need a starting point for the animation frame. Not the offset. This is the one. Switch this around. So what, Mecha? If target movement should be, that should say it's non-zero. Then row is equal to 0. It's an int. Let me increase it by 1. Times y. I am making a game, Mecha. Making a Vampire Survivor style game. Okay. Go into our player template just for parity here and make sure it's moving at the same speed. I think I set it to 192. Okay, we need to get the facing in here. Hey, mate, we are still programming. Still programming. Same game, of course. We have tightened down performance sufficient to maintain my sanity. Not to the maximum extent, but good enough that I can say it's good enough. So this is where we currently are. Why is that not? Oh. Let's fix that. Just a moment here. This. Just a moment. I am messing with folder structure here. Okay, we are going to show my grid. These are 16 by 16. We are going to image, canvas size. It is going to be 32 tall, and we are going to shift it that way. Be that. Paste into current layer. So export it accordingly. We are going to save as. I'm going to make a Krita project here. That. Make sure that it actually. Yes, okay. Yeah, I use Krita for my video thumbnails. I'm using Krita for the sprites just so that I'm consistent. I have used a sprite for them before. But since I'm making sprite sheets, it's largely irrelevant which one I use. I may yet revisit using a sprite. I think I decided that I was going to use a sprite. Anyhow. Okay. Well, if 0 facing right is equal to true. If not facing right, scale x times equals -1. The sprites for the game I'm drawing myself. Okay, player animation is working again. Yep. Yep. Now I need a way to attach the camera to it. So we could use the player factory for that. But camera attachment is a little different here. Because the player entity isn't really moving around in the same fashion. Oh, cute. We shall hunt for cat. So Sherbet's all contorted around on the shelf. 1 second here. Let's see if we can fix that real quick, huh? Shelf is camera 4. Just so. little more. Yeah, a little less. We have to zoom that in, I think. That'll have to do. Indeed, kitties. Let's see, we have... Oh, we have all 5 on camera. Sky up in his tree, Mason and Sammy on the bed, Ember on the table. She's actually staring at Sherbet right now. Maybe she was looking over there and saying, I want to be in that spot. She's gone to get a snack instead. And then Sherbet over on the shelf. Let's put the camera on the shelf for now. He looks extra cozy. Interestingly, Sherbet is my only cat that does the full contortion of comfort thing that a lot of cats do. Where they will twist themselves into bizarre shapes, and it seems like that makes them cozier. Okay. We need a way to pin the camera to the player. And this might be where the player needs to be different than other things. That they could have a reference to a camera and have that camera move around with them would be one option. We could have the player's zone move around. Oh, so what we're thinking on right now. The player in the center there is right now is an actual body in the world. It's a full-on Godot construct, as opposed to the one that's in the lower right here, which is constructed in the same way that all the blobs and whatnot are. Have a good night there, mate. Let's fix that real quick, actually. There we go. There we are. If it rotates, it should not do the face left-right logic. But the trick is, currently, when the game spawns, it sets the camera to be a child of the actual player body object, which is what we want to move away from using. I don't want to mess with the idea of a collision zone moving around necessarily, but... Alright, let's make another player object here. Okay. Yeah, party, that is one of my cats. That one's name is Sherbet. He is being extra cozy over on the shelf. I have 5 cats. We can see 4. We can see 4 of them. Ember is not visible. Alright, if we store the player... This is temporary. Player is an entity. Spawn will also return an entity. Just so. No pugs visible. Only cats. Is Sherbet piled on top of Mason? I think he has. If I had to keep just one, ugh. Not really a decision I'd want to make. Do I like pugs? Pugs are okay. I mean, setting aside the fact that they're horrifying monsters that humanity has created out of ignorant cruelty, they're kind of cute. You know, for creatures we have created to in a way that has caused them to suffer. They at least look cute. Okay, so then we do player equals this. We don't do that. Oh, that'll ripple. We can't do all of this yet. Okay, if we go to the player factory scene, we have a player template that we can set. So we're going to set the player template here. That's an odd combination. Pomeranian in a Chihuahua. Is it a slightly bigger Pomeranian? Or a slightly smaller Pomeranian? I don't know the proportional size on average. Is your cat named Oreo a tuxedo? I feel like that's some sort of like legal obligation. Okay, we have player factory. Our player template. I'm going to use the same terminology. Like that. And then okay, we can assign a template and we can create the player from here, but player factory doesn't know about the zone. Lily is a cute name. What coloration is Lily? We could create it at a particular position, but until we add it to a zone, part of spawning it is to add it to a zone. Little ninja pug, huh? Okay, so we added this ability to force a spawn. And then we've made it so that when you spawn something, it intrinsically can add it to the appropriate area. It needs to be added to that zone or else it won't work right. Ah. we track the player, every physics update we could move the camera around so that we don't have to worry about the camera actually tracking a player entity. I get what you mean, Ocean, but I think any statement that is followed by "it's not a cult" is automatically sus. Oh, and I didn't see that statement there, Mecha. The camera is a body. I could make it move around. Like, we could have inputs trigger movement of the camera. That's kind of like, no, it's not a pyramid scheme. It's much more like a trapezoid. See, our organizational structure is a circle. There's people on the outside, and all of the stuff flows towards the center. It's not a cult, it's an MLM. Okay, if we had the player, we can regularly check its position and move the camera. That will still work. Then we need a clean way to generate the player objects and to get the player objects. Player factory should still be a global. Almost everything needs to know about the player. Easiest way to avoid being considered a cult is, I think the foremost way to avoid being considered a cult on the surface is to never refer to a cult. The minute the terminology gets brought into play, you're immediately sus. I think I'm of this similar opinion to Tass. I will I will cheer your pug army on from a safe distance from the compound. Don't want to get caught in any stray ATF fire, you know? Hypothetical stray ATF fire. Now, we could set the zone initially. We could set the zone initially. Player template is set intrinsically. But the zone doesn't exist until the game world exists. So I think say collision zone, just so. So I think it's appropriate for the game during its globals here. Say player factory dot player zone is equal to, we're gonna change this soon, but no 2D slash why you no work. There. Ocean, we're making a game. We're making a Vampire Survivor style game, if you're familiar. So, you know, you stand in the center of the screen, you can move around, monsters swarm in from the sides, bullets fly out, try to get rid of monsters before they touch you. We are in the process of creating a different style of player entity, which is the one in the lower right there. More maintainable, better performance, that kind of thing. Okay, then if we go into Player Factory, when we create a player, the first thing we are going to assert, we're going to assert that player zone does not equal null. And it's null by default. You must set this. Okay. So when we create a player, I'm going to go into our game logic again, where we are doing this. Just so. Just so. Hey there, Yassine. I do not have any snacks nearby. I've got a beverage. I mean, I have snacks for the cats, but if I deploy a cat snack, then they will all vanish from camera. Theirs is a array of entity players and player. The moment there will just be the one. Less than players size. Explicitly null. that. Well, they can feel free to draw me. I do have a hashtag for that on Twitter if you'd like to use it, but do not feel obligated to. I would request that if you do post it publicly, that it be safe for work. But otherwise, go nuts. Dude, it's moving along. It's moving along. See? We can sustain still about 3,500 entities before it starts to bog down, but as might be apparent, that's plenty. I do have a Discord for those that are interested. 1 second here. This should totally work. Come on, StreamerBot, you can do it. Oh. Oh, that'll inhibit StreamerBot from working. One moment. StreamerBot wasn't running. Come on, StreamerBot. Obey me. Time. Haha. There is a link to my Discord there, as well as to my various channels and similar. Doesn't look like it replies in every chat. Interesting. Oh, but maybe. Okay, let's... Yeah, I wonder if I can get StreamerBot to talk to 2 YouTube chats at once. It would be convenient, but at the moment it only seems to be locking onto one of them. So I think I would have to post the links in 1 or 2. But, well, we'll work on it. Okay, so we have multiple... So right now it just appends them. Well, thank you. I appreciate the compliment, Ocean. We try to have a very relaxed broadcast. We could just populate it. Okay, for the time being, there's only going to be one player object. I'll have to noodle on how to cleanly keep track of them. Never heard that, what would it be? That euphemism or saying? Noodle upon? Hello, Brianna. Favorite color? I like purple. Mason in his normal position, Sherbet very much in a I'll totally fit here, just let me squeeze in kind of position. All right, collision zone. I'll remove entity. It should cleanly get rid of it. And we have a mutual reference to it, so technically this can be an issue, but it should find it. No matter what, we're going to call entity remove. Then if entities find entity is we need to find it. So it needs to be greater than or equal to 0 when we find it. When we try to find it. So then we're going to erase it. We're going to release it from the pool. Yeah. So we just make sure it's removed when we tell the pool to remove it. I don't like that we're going through a spawner to do this. Do not like that. Well, no, it's not that I don't like that. It's the fact that I'm interacting with two different entities here. Player factory. Players 0. Okay. Should be fine. So then in the game, that as an entity. Okay, stuff should start breaking left and right here. Okay, this is spawning a player, but that's not what we want to do just yet. I'm going to do that. Player factory. Create. Vector 2.0. Explicit. And that's right. It will be not 0. It is offset by that much, so it is 960 by 540. Is position not what we want? Is it transform? Translated here. Nope. How do we do this? It should have a position, but we're trying to move the camera around. Since instead of it being pinned to a mobile and a mobile object within the Godot engine, we need to move it around in space. Got to get those pigs on camera somehow, Tass. Oh, wait. It is working. Camera's down here. What am I... It's already working. It's that the spawners are not in position to follow the player entity. So we are going to do a... Oh, this is tricky. Oh. There we go. It was airing out because I was recursively adding the game node to itself. And it didn't like that. Okay. We need something that tracks the player around. So this is where all of the weapons and whatnot are going to exist from. So we are going to create a node that is a node 2D. It will be the player tracker. We are actually going to put a camera here. And like that. We don't need to set that. It works. Okay. So in ready, we should be able to set a node 2D. Node 2D. And this we should be on ready. No, we don't want on ready. That's a hassle. We want game to have player tracker here. Camera as camera 2D. Camera is that. So now we don't need this. Okay, so the player is not offset. We should be using 0, 0. There we go. So player can move around. Why are the spawners actually following the player entity? I am puzzled. Oh, I know. Because this player entity still exists. Yes. Okay. So we are going to switch. These are okay at the moment. These weapon templates here. We're adding to the player tracker. the player entity is still moving around. You can see a very slight blur on the edge of the player sprite. I can see a very slight blur. I don't know if you can. The explosions begin. Get Air Factory. Get player. We made a function for that. Get player. Probably add a direction too on that as well. Why? Why are the spawners spawning on the player? Oh. Because this still works. Get player position. Okay, okay. Okay, so then in the game's physics process, this is us updating the world tiles. Which I don't think we need to actually do this anymore. Player tracker dot position is equal to player factory player get player dot position. Ta-da! Still some elements that I really don't like about this, but my cats like napping a whole bunch, Eldon. They do still run around. They still do cause mischief, especially Sky. He'll get into stuff. But stream time is usually nap time. Okay, by default... matter, they're still Y ordered. Yeah. Alright, but we can color modulate things, we can... we're still spawning them. The player is spawned in the same way. I would still like a more graceful way of tracking the spawners. At the moment, they exist as individual nodes, and I feel like that's asking for trouble. I think this is where having the player entity treated as a special thing and having each physics slice with the game, it goes in and says, hey, player, do you want to spawn stuff? I almost feel like that should be true of every spawner. That instead of the spawner having its own physics ticker, that the game is supplying that. That would make pausing stuff easier, because I don't have 100 things with their own physics ticks going on. That still makes each of these world entities have their own physics tick, but I could override that. That instead of their own physics process, they're receiving a poke from the game world to do their physics stuff. I don't know if that would be more or less efficient, but again, it means that it is 100% controllable. It would mean that I can go into the game world and say, don't do a physics tick right now, or similar. I don't have to hope that all of the entities get paused. That sounds good. Let's do that. So collision zones have a physics process, which currently is ticking on its own. If instead we have delta as a float, alt U, and temporarily do this. There's collision zones in there, and then spawners. Blanked on how to spell physics for a minute there. Hello, Molly. So now what I can do with this is I could have a collection of spawners that I'm registering things to, that I can also subsequently remove from, and have all of the spawners operate on a uniform tick, have all of the movement operate on a uniform tick. Yeah, yeah. We're getting there. Time since last spawn is... No, but if I don't pass delta in, time doesn't pass for them. That's good. I like that. We wouldn't... Using this model, we don't have to worry that if I halt the world, that this tick is still coming in. Like something. As a player zone. Collision zone. Player zone is this. We could add multiple of these just for sanity's sake here. Instead of player zone, we can say player zone like that. Still tracking. So what we can do is we could have another spatial entity that exists and is putting these things into place. The camera we can set up to track the player. That's fine. The spawners, we need to set up how we're going to propagate that. Having them pinned to the player isn't really what we want, or it's not really relevant, because if they spawn on the player, they spawn on the player. That's just what happens. The node doesn't need to be attached to them. They don't even need to be a node. Them not being a node would actually save resources. So instead, a spawner could be an entity in a collection. We could have multiple collections. We could have a weapon collection, and we could have a monster spawner collection. This would allow me to have multiple monster generators created according to a script. That creates the after this much time, these things start spawning kind of logic. Generally, you wouldn't need multiple at a time, but the script might call for it, like, hey, some of them are this, some of them are that kind of spawning logic. As well as the ability to do one-off spawns. Yes. I kind of like that. So we could have spawners is an array of spawner objects. Now they're going to be orphaned nodes while we're doing this, when we're getting this rolling, but should be fine yet, should be fine yet. So instead of adding child to each one, we're going to go in and say that each one of these spawners gets added to a collection. That. that. Like that. We're telling them to spawn into the appropriate zones. Then during our physics process, spawner, spanwer, spawner in spawners, spawner, physics tick, delta. Then we go into spawners and we remove their physics process. Then we're going to go into the game and we're going to add we do this. We generally don't need to have an individual zone. We could have a dictionary of them, because we only need to iterate over them once we've got our entities in place. They're known commodities otherwise. So if we do export zones as a dictionary, can I specify this? I would like it to be fixed key value pairs, but I don't know that I can. Because they can contain different types of key value pair, and that's technically asking for trouble. Because I have to add that in manually. Okay. This is an array of collision zones. Player zone, enemy zone, bullet zone. Enemy zone, bullet zone. This is at onReady is equal to an array of player zone, enemy zone, and bullet zone. Just so. So then in physics process, for zone in zones, zone.physics tick delta. And then I go into collision zone. I remove physics process. Isn't that neat? So every tick, what we're saying is the game is the thing that controls if these happen. I could have a value that is like, it's paused, it's in a menu, that kind of thing. Sammy really likes to nap. Generally, the two states you're going to see her on camera in is napping there or on the shelf. Well, yeah, she's going to be napping there or on the shelf. The alternative is that she's on her way to the food or to my lap. That's pretty much it. Most of my cats are proximity cats, as I refer to it. They hang out near me. Ember and Sammy are lap cats. They will come and they will sit on you. Mason and Sky are occasionally lap cats. Mason actually likes to climb up on my shoulder a bit. Sherbet likes to sit on my headrest behind my head and get back scratches, maybe a few minutes, not for terribly long. Sky realized that that was a thing he could do, so Sky has actually started doing that. And he's like twice Sherbet's size, so it's much more of an issue when he does it. Yeah, I'm liking this. I'm liking this. Now let's do a little bit of cleanup here. So player tracker isn't really necessary anymore. We do eventually want to release this kind of thing because we might have some leaks going on. Let's go into spawner, actually. It does not extend node. Since it doesn't extend node, we don't have to worry about any of that limitation. All of these things should go away cleanly. So let's look at our monitors. No orphan nodes. Okay, good, good. Now, if you look, the node structure that we've got here is very sparse now. We have our zones, we have our camera. Global nodes is largely irrelevant now. There are a lot of elements to global nodes that doesn't need to exist anymore, which is good. I don't like that collection. It is becoming largely outmoded as far as what it was for. Shape pool, we can see the number of shapes being created, or what's in there. Hello there, Blue. We have Sherbet and Sammy on camera at the moment. Canvas pool, holding steady. Entity pool, pretty good shape. Movement pool, we can see various types. Why doesn't movement pool... Oh, each individual one. Yeah, we're going to need to correct that. Should not be popping front for that. That's interesting. So if we watch here, every one of these, like every mouse, has 3 movement entities in it. Every blob has 1. Every player has 1. So if I look at our movement pools here, over... These arrays are only ever holding like one. But and we just got a crash case. Sit and watch a moment here. Movement pool collections should be way bigger than this. Should be way bigger than that. We get a movement type. We get the pool from it. We find the pool, we make a new pool. One, two, three, four, five. Okay, that shouldn't be happening. Okay, so that's... Here's our problem. We're creating that... As? Okay, I think it's supposed to be has. Okay, feels better. This should only ever be going up at this rate, though. This shouldn't be able to go down. Because we're not hitting pool minimum. Pool minimum should be 10. Let's double check. Yeah, pool minimum is 10. That shouldn't be fluctuating up and down. And that shouldn't be holding at 7 like that. Should absolutely be going up. So our movement pool isn't working how it's supposed to. We are still reusing nodes, which is good. But not how we're supposed to. Wait a minute. Hey there, Sans. This might be our problem here. No, 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 no. Yeah. It's less than the maximum, which is like 1,000,000. Add it to that pool. It has movement type of 0. Oh. Maybe? Movement object. Where is? I don't know. Oh. Cute, Sans. And hello, Ivan. Where's our movement object? There. Function knit. No variables. Type is equal to get movement type. Wait. Is this... We don't need a type there. Game's going well, Copper. Thanks for swinging through. And let me see, which day is this? We've been coding this for more than 126 hours now. No, that's the right movement type. And move straight line is move straight line. Move the player is move player. Getting all the right ones. I can't guarantee any specific kind of secret stuff, but there will probably be secret stuff in the game. If for no other reason than like little Easter eggs for people that watched it being written. Why this not work correctly? We get the pool. So we create an object. So we get the movement pool. We create it initially. All right, this should only happen once for move the player, once for move to player, once for random direction and straight line. So there should be 4 different pools. 2, 3, 4. Okay, pools are not created again. So that's correct. Pool has a size of 74. Well, that's correct. Oh, it's truncated. It was right all along. Thanks for swinging through, folks, if you're heading out. Okay. So now we have logic for creating and tracking spawners that we're making. We can separate them as well. We could have weapon spawners and we could have monster spawners as separate collections so that we know where to put them. I have played Undertale, Elden Vin. I suspect Sans is at least aware of it. Undertale was a lot of fun. It's been a long time since I played it. I have only played some of the first chapter of Deltarune. But with that one, I'd kind of like it to be done before I touch Deltarune. Episodic games kind of get lurchy, but that's not to say I'd never touch it before it's done. Okay, so we've got the player object in, we've got spawners and spawn regions and player zones in a better shape than they were. Make sure nothing's exploding now that I've done this. Yes, yes. We no longer need these. Did we break something? Did not. Excellent. No, but in general, Undertale is one of those games to look to if you ever think, oh man, I could never make a game. You absolutely can. Toby Fox was not a brilliant programmer. They are a good game maker and a fantastic musician. But their code, the code that is in Undertale, or at least they were not a good programmer. I can't speak to how much they've improved since Undertale, but the code in Undertale is a nightmare. The thing about that is it does what it should. It resulted in a good game. So even if your code is not fantastic, you can work towards a good game. Yes. Okay. So our next objective for Friday, which is the next schedule game, a game dev session, is to start messing with the spawners. So right now the spawners have a template that they're given. And early today we showed that we could edit those templates after the fact. What we're probably going to do is, in addition to having a collection of spawners, we're going to have a collection of weapon templates. that we can mess with. And while we're running around, we're going to make some other entities that if we touch them, or just on a timer, depending on how we want to test it, we're going to go in and we're going to add some stuff to those movement templates. We're going to socket in stuff at semi-random, which means we're probably going to make some new movement types. I figure S-curve, orbit, that kind of stuff would be pretty good. Have one that says, like, whatever its current position is, its relative position, it will try to orbit that at a given distance, kind of stuff. S-curve should be straightforward. We should just be able to use, like, a sine wave with a particular magnitude. Probably not that specifically, Sans, but a great big laser, that's always fun. We've got, generally the gimmick on a lot of these is cat-themed. The weapons that are definitely going to be in the game are the wind-up mouse, a laser pointer kind of thing, a yarn ball, probably some other stuff. We just got the wind-up mouse because it's very visually busy. But yeah. Past that, there will be a lot more stuff. It's just that those are the original ones from back in the Noida days. Nobody ever chose the wind-up mouse. Everybody chose the laser. Well, no, they chose the laser or the yarn ball because the yarn ball hit the hardest and the laser was hit scan, so. No guarantees on any platform. If there's going to be a platform release initially, it's going to be Steam. And then it will radiate out from there based on difficulty and expense. Any platform that isn't Steam is going to be more expensive and more of a burden. Does that mean I won't? No. But we'll have to see from there. I am building the game so it will be as compatible as possible with as many platforms as possible. But yeah, so again, next stream is on Friday. I hope everybody had a good time today, though. If you like what you saw and you haven't already, remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. It'll help you find my streams in the future. And with that said, I hope you have a nice rest of your day.